My preferred way to travel is staying in a city for 1 or more months while I travel, work, and really inundate myself with the culture of that specific place. So in this video, I'm going to be reviewing all of the cities where I've traveled and worked for a month or more and ranking those on a few factors. The first one is going to be affordability, which is so important to continue to do this lifestyle. As I've said in previous videos, I still have my home base here in the United States while I travel internationally. So because I'm paying double expenses in a lot of ways, that affordability factor is a big one. The second factor is livability. So this includes everything from transportation to how good is their Wi-Fi to how easily available are fresh and affordable foods, and all of those other factors that make a city just feel really easy to live in. And then the third factor is the wow factor. That is very subjective, as you might be able to tell, but it encompasses some of the other things that I care about. So the natural beauty of a place, the availability of green spaces. If the place is on the coast, it automatically gets some brownie points. The architecture and the surroundings. So the easy ability to take weekend trips and day trips all factors into that wow factor. Hopefully this helps you decide where you might want to take your next trip or have your next digital nomad stay if this is a lifestyle that you may be interested in. So let's dive in. But if you're new to this channel, a little bit of an intro. My name is Kristen and I've been a digital nomad since 2018 when I quit my crazy full-time job in public accounting to try to see the world. And since that point, I've been continuing on with this lifestyle while having a home base in the state of Tennessee and traveling remotely about 3 to 4 months per year. I am still an accountant. I'm a CPA and I run an accounting firm called Gradient Accounting where we help other digital nomads with taxes and accounting questions and ongoing support and consulting. So that is my background and I do feel like I'm uniquely qualified to speak on this because I've been to a lot of places. And as you can see here, there are a few that really stand out. So I'm excited to break it down for you. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I'm going to be splicing in some pictures and videos that I took during my time in these places, but just so you know, some of them are fairly low quality. So bear with me, they're fun pictures, but they're not really super high quality, especially those that were back in 2018. And then I may also have to look down on my notes a couple of times just because I do have number rankings of 1 to 10 on my 3 factors, so I may not remember those off the top of my head. All right, let's do it. The first city I'm going to tell you guys about is Mexico City. I lived in Mexico City in 2018, February, and this was during my gap year. So really, I had just left my full-time job and wasn't doing full-time work anymore and just kind of bouncing around from place to place. Budget was extremely important to me because I had a limited amount of money to spend. I had just what was in my savings account and that was dwindling every single month. So Mexico City was the perfect place to post up for a month. It was extremely affordable, amazing food, really just a huge bustling city with something to do at all times. And we didn't even scratch the surface of this incredible city. The weather was great. February, it was warm and sunny every single day. And I so much enjoyed my time there. I took a 3-week Spanish class that was very affordable and I met a few friends through that. And we never had any issues with Wi-Fi or being able to work when we did work. We did some really notable side trips while in Mexico City. One was Teotihuacan, and excuse me if I pronounced that wrong, but it is the ancient pyramid formation there, and just about an hour and a half by bus outside of the city. And then we also went to San Miguel de Allende and Querétaro, and we stayed one night to see both of those places. So that's something else to note is even though we're staying in these places for 1 month, often we are renting that Airbnb for the full month, but taking side trips to other places. We're just leaving most of our stuff in that Airbnb and kind of eating the cost because it usually is so affordable. So that brings me to accommodations for Mexico City. We did stay in an Airbnb like I'm referencing, and that was about $800 per night. It wasn't in the main kind of tourist digital nomad hotspots of Roma or Condessa. Those are the two most popular neighborhoods for digital nomads, but instead it was in an adjacent neighborhood with a lot of locals and families that we absolutely love. So that was the price point of our Airbnb. I think adjusted for 2024 prices for inflation, it would probably be more around the lines of like $1,200 a month for a comparable place. In terms of my 3 factors, affordability, I am going to give Mexico City an 8 out of 10. So 1 being the least affordable, 10 being the most affordable. So it gets an 8. Very affordable, $1 street tacos or less. Meals were super, super cheap. Mexico City is really a digital nomad hotspot, especially Roma and Condessa, those 2 neighborhoods. So prices are probably pretty inflated there now, especially in 2024. Livability, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. And the reason why I docked some points here is for safety mainly. Mexico City, most of the neighborhoods are very safe. There are some that you really don't want to venture in. And also there is, from what we saw, a lot of petty theft. So my husband, when we were there, got his phone stolen on the subway. Probably not super common, but it did happen. And then one of our other friends came to visit us, and him and my husband went to an event and he got his phone stolen also. So it does happen. And that makes the city slightly less livable, in my opinion. And then wow factor, I gave Mexico City a 6. I really enjoyed experiencing the Mexican culture, but being a huge sprawling city, there wasn't much natural beauty. However, I will say there were a ton of beautiful parks and green spaces, and that really wowed me while I was there. So Mexico City, a great place. Overall, the weighted score based on the 3 factors is a 6.3. So the next place is Athens, Greece. I lived in Athens for a month also during my gap year, and this was in May of 2018. We decided to base ourselves in Athens based on the cost of living factor since, again, we were on a very tight budget. We found a pretty good value Airbnb in a really kind of local neighborhood for around $600 a month, which is dirt cheap, and I do not think this is possible during this current day and age. However, I do still think there is a ton of good value to be found in Athens. We used Athens as a base several times while we were visiting some of the Greek islands on day trips or weekend trips, and that was definitely the highlight of our time there. So we went to Aegina, which is the closest island to Athens. It's about a 1-hour ferry each way from the main port there, Piraeus. And then Hydra, which is spelled Hydra in English. And that was about, I think, a 4 to 5 hour fast ferry to get there each way. So we did spend one night there. So based on my 3 factors, Athens gets an 8 for affordability. I was blown away at how affordable Athens was. When you think Europe, you kind of think expensive. And Athens was not that way. We were able to get amazing food and for like no money at all. So we basically lived off of Slovakis, and I'm pronouncing all of this wrong, but euros, and it was just very affordable. So 8 out of 10. For livability, I'm giving Athens a 7. It had really great public transportation via the subway system and buses. It was very walkable in a lot of ways. It is a fairly sprawling city, but nothing compared to the size and scope of Mexico City. And we didn't have any problems with working or Wi-Fi, so it was a great place to be. And then wow factor, I'm giving Athens a 7. I absolutely loved being able to just walk around and stumble upon ancient Greek ruins and visit world-class sites like the Parthenon for a very affordable price. Athens truly does pack a punch. I would say that it is a fairly grungy city, so if you're not prepared for that, you may be surprised. But I did feel like the city overall was fairly safe. There were a few areas that were not, you felt a little bit sketchy and you kind of avoided at night, but overall a very safe city. So loved Athens, and based on that, all those factors, my overall score for Athens is a 7.3. So now we're getting into some of our more recent trips, and the first one I'm going to talk about is Valencia, Spain. So I lived in Valencia during the full month of May 2023, and I had been to a lot of other cities in Spain at this point in time, but never Valencia. And being that it's Spain's 3rd largest city, it really doesn't have the same tourism representation as somewhere like Barcelona, really not even close. However, to me, that is hard to believe, having been there and lived there for a month, because it packs a punch. Every day felt so dynamic. I felt like during the course of a day, you could be swimming at beautiful beaches, and then you could take a quick subway or bike ride to world-class parks and green spaces. And during that same way, you could do a walking tour in the cultural center, the old city center of the city. You could go to awesome museums. Every day just felt so easy, but yet so gratifying. So I really loved Valencia, as you can see with my rankings. In terms of our stay, we stayed at an Airbnb for the full month, and it cost us about $1,100. And this was in 2023. So that is an amazing price point. It was in a local neighborhood. As you can see, we like to stay in more local neighborhoods and not in the tourist center of the city to get these really good deals. So based on that, the availability of really high quality ingredients for low prices at the different markets, like Valencia's Central Market, Valencia will get a 7 for affordability. So that's pretty good. As you can see, it's a little bit more expensive for a lot of things than Mexico City and Athens were. So that's why it gets 1 point less than those places. For livability, I give it a 10. It was just awesome. The beaches were steps away, beautiful parks were everywhere, and it was just such an easy place to live. I found a really cool co-working space, and it just seemed like an overall digital nomad hotspot. So I cannot recommend it enough. And then wow factor, it gets an 8. Yeah, beautiful city. Don't have much more than that to say. So overall, Valencia gets a score of 8.3. Love this city. Can't wait to go back. Would definitely consider buying a second home base there. That's how much I loved it. So we've talked about a lot of places that I've loved. This next one is somewhere that was meh for me, okay? And that is Montevideo in the beautiful country of Uruguay. I lived in Montevideo most recently in January 2024, and overall I felt like the city was super laid back and safe and comfortable, but it really didn't have that charm for me. Didn't have a wow factor, in my opinion, as you can see in my ranking here in a second. The city itself seemed pretty quiet, and that there wasn't a ton going on, and there weren't a ton of green spaces throughout the city. The beaches and the Rambla were really awesome, which the Rambla is kind of the big beach walking and running path that runs along the beach. It's about 18 kilometers, so it's absolutely massive. And that was what I was most excited about going there, was the idea that you have this beautiful beach, but then you also have this awesome path that follows the beach for walking and running and biking. And I was a bit disappointed just because the Rambla is on a main street, so you constantly have that street noise, and it doesn't really feel tucked away at all. And also, Uruguay is not known to be a cheap country by any means, and it wasn't. Prices there were very similar to our prices here at home in Tennessee. So it is cheaper than like a New York City or a big, huge metropolitan city in the US, but it wasn't much cheaper than where we live. In terms of affordability, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 for those reasons that I stated. We were paying much more for food, accommodations, activities, all the things. For livability, I am giving it a 6 out of 10. It was pretty livable, but it didn't have really any public transportation other than buses, which we didn't take a ton. Yeah, I just think that a lot of the other cities on this list felt more livable to me. And then wow factor, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. So overall, Montevideo gets a score of 5 out of 10, and it's going to be my lowest on this list. Still a great city, and everyone has their own preferences about what they like and enjoy. So for some other people doing this exact same itinerary as I'm outlining, Montevideo could be their favorite, but it wasn't for me, and so that's why it gets a 5. So my next place is one that is near and dear to my heart, and this is my last place on the list, and it's Buenos Aires, Argentina. So I lived in Buenos Aires for 1 month during February 2024, so right after Montevideo, we went there. It was only 3.5 hours by ferry to get over there, so super easy to pair those two together. And this was a city that I truly fell in love with. The people have a reputation of being very outgoing and open and friendly, and I definitely felt that. Even compared to Montevideo, even though they seem like they should be sister countries, in Uruguay, people seem to be more reserved and closed off in a way. But Buenos Aires was not like that. The city was buzzing and there was always something to do, always a festival or a market or something going on. Unfortunately, they are going through an inflation crisis there, and they very much were in February of 2024 while I was there. But that meant for Americans, it was an absolute bargain. So definitely unfortunate for the people that live in Buenos Aires and work there. But I tried to pour as much as possible into the local economy and tip as much as possible just to help the people out there, because it is a sad thing that's going on. It's really helpful for them to continue to have tourism. So yes, Buenos Aires was very affordable. We had an Airbnb for a month and it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And that cost, I believe, $1,300. So, and I think we could have gotten something even cheaper if we would have looked a little bit harder. In a lot of ways, Buenos Aires really seemed like a digital nomad paradise. It is very affordable, very safe, and fairly well organized. It has a great cafe scene and plenty of co-working spaces. I can't recommend it enough for digital nomads looking for somewhere to spend their time, especially because it's in the southern hemisphere. Their seasons are opposite of ours. So basically, we were down there for their summer. Even though it was February back at home and really cold, it was extremely warm, sunny, and in the 80s every day. We loved Buenos Aires and cannot say enough good things about it. So in terms of my ranking factors, affordability, I'm going to give it a 10. It was one of the most affordable places I've been, and I hope that changes, but that is what it's like now. Livability, I'm going to give it an 8. Very livable place. The only thing I would dock it on a little bit is just the fact that Argentina is a huge country, so it's not super easy to take a ton of trips to go see other regions of the country. You do have to get on an airplane and fly if you want to do that. I think that also contributed to me giving the wow factor a 7. It was a beautiful city with a ton of parks and green spaces, but again, not super well connected to the rest of the country, just being such a huge country. And also, obviously, there was really no great beach. So that also contributed to the wow factor being a 7. So overall, Buenos Aires gets a score of 8.3. So of these, which was my favorite? Well, our top 2 were Buenos Aires and Valencia, both tied with that 8.3 score. Those are my 2 favorites that I've lived in so far. And I don't know if this is recency bias because I have lived in Buenos Aires the most recently, and then Valencia was just a year ago. So potentially that could have gone into it, but I don't know, because when I think about these 2 cities, my heart lights up. They were amazing experiences, and I really highly recommend them to anyone that is looking to base themselves somewhere else for a month or more and really kind of adapt as a local. And these cities have actually both recently gotten a lot of attention from digital nomads, so keep that in mind when you go there, to be respectful and realize that you're not the only nomad there, and that you must try to do as the locals do as much as possible. So don't stick out like a sore thumb. Try to adapt as much as possible to some of the different things that locals do there, and really make a conscious effort to contribute to the local economy. So I hope this video was interesting to you if you are considering taking on more of a digital nomad lifestyle, or if you're already doing it and want to explore some places and try to live in places for a month or more. Again, I highly recommend it. It's what I love to do. So I would love if you liked, commented, and subscribed to my channel. That would be amazing. And also, please leave a comment if there's anywhere in the world that you've lived for a month or more and what you thought about it, and if I should add it to my list to visit next, because I'm sure I will be updating this video as I continue to live this lifestyle. Thank you guys. Have a great day.